welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon and I'm the host of A Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. And welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Sharon, and welcome back to part 3 of our podcast. Enjoy. So you've got this recorded down on the protocol, and you're also conferring on his reading calendar. There's a note.
All right,
going
so
on.
now on his reading calendar, we have written, so I say, all right, so what is your strategy goal? And he says, when I come to a word that I know doesn't...
He can't read it. Or
when I come to a word...
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he can read it, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Then I'll try that word with another sound.
And that's all in his language that he's writing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I write it
in his language.
He's saying it.
Yep.
The important thing is he's saying it,
Yep.
or the child's saying it, I'm writing it, and he's already practiced it. And how have we practiced it? Just by going back to the words. And he said, I just keep doing that now. I just move forward. But what we did was fixed what he had difficulty with. So that was the practice together.
On his reading calendar, it's about having more practice at that. So
yeah, it's a strategy goal there.
Yeah, strategy goal.
Yes, yeah.
So that's great.
Right, and on the calendar, the other thing I didn't mention before is next to the things that are recorded, I've put a date next to it to show, and next to the piece where it says try a different sound, we've put the date and that we set a goal.
On the calendar.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we just wrote goal next to it to show that goal, it appears as a goal on the calendar on that same date.
Yep. And your protocol sheets there, do you have those in their reading journal as well or not?
Because this is all still in inquiry stage.
In development.
And people working with how this might work, this particular school has the protocol as... Well, one of their jobs as teams was to work out how will the protocol be stored, made accessible. The important thing was that it is going to be a sheet that's going to be used across a semester, across 2 terms, as a culminating picture, and that how useful that will be when it comes to reporting time. But it's also how useful it is from conference to conference to conference to see what aspects we're building a picture of for this child. Some people are putting the protocol into individual manila folders, so the students have got that, so it can easily come out at the time of the conference. Next year, some teachers would like the protocol to be built into, so to have 2 of those protocol pages built into the reading calendar. So there's one protocol page for the first half of the year and another one for the second half of the year. So they've made a reading calendar that's A3 size but now folded as, as a book.
Oh, yes.
And they'd love the protocol pages to be in there as well, so that it's now a growing picture of what students...
So it's almost becoming a reading journal, but it's specifically the protocol and the reading calendar in it as an official school book.
Yes.
but it's almost, a person who's got an exercise book for each child, they could put the protocol and the reading calendars and conferring. Well, the conferring notes are actually
and
part
journal entries, or the conferring notes are part of this.
Yeah.
So yes,
or a literature log could be in there as well.
The way of making it work
is up to the school.
That's really the exciting part of it. But making it work in a way that it's having the power, that the conferring isn't what I think is sometimes seen just as, look, we've collected some notes, here we've got, and it might be in children's hands. The important thing is that children are, have had an opportunity to practice this, to see how it works, and that they have got, with independence, the opportunity to keep going with that. And it's not the only goal. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So he's set on his path with his reading calendar. He's set to go.
Yes.
And there's a whole lot of techniques that have been used in that example as well.
Yes. Now, I'm going to jump to a Year 5 girl who is a little bit like the first young man that I talked about, where I noticed something before reading that made a difference to what we did in the conference. So this girl has come with a chapter book, and I ask her, and I explain once again, what the conferring, I'm going to, listen and watch her read, and if she could read from here to here, but I haven't even got to the here to here bit yet. When I say, can you show me where you're up to in the book? And she opens the book. They're already in their reading time.
And sorry, what year is this?
Year 5.
Year 5, yep.
They're already in their independent reading time. So during all of these conferences, all the other children are reading independently.
Yep.
And I'm now modelling this to a teacher with one of their children as all other children are reading. Yep. And my other goal is to show how I'm doing this in 5 minutes.
Right.
So that, I know, so that it's
manageable.
Each time I'm conferring, I can, each reading session, independent reading session, I can confer with a couple of children, which lets me then get to all of my children at least once a month or once every 4 weeks, maybe more often, but I'm trying to make it, that I get to see some children it's important for them to know that this is an important process in their learning and our teaching. So she's brought the book, and I say, show me, where will you be reading from today? And it's very random where the book is open to and where she's going to start reading. And so I said, I noticed that it looks like you're not sure where you're up to in the book. And she said, yes. Now, a bit like our Year 3 man who says, I'm new to chapter books. So she's Year 5, and she's chosen a very weighty chapter book. I'm not going to say it's not really complex language in the book, but it's quite long. And she said, I'm new to chapter books, and I find it really difficult to remember what I read. And so I don't really know where I'm up to because I can't remember. I go back, I go forward. Right. So that's our point. The very same thing as our young man with the eyes and mind in the book. So I get her, I said, do you know what? Let's just, for the ease of this, go back to the beginning of the book and show me what you do as you read. So we go back to the beginning, to the first chapter, And she is someone who has good eyes in the book. So she's got no challenges with the decoding part, but the knowing what she's reading and understanding what she's reading, I don't know yet, because
You can't really do that without speaking to her afterwards.
Yes. So because she said, I find it difficult to remember, I don't get her to read a whole. So on the first page, it's probably about, I'm going to say, 5 short paragraphs. So I say, let's take this paragraph by paragraph. So let's read the first paragraph. And as you're reading, have you ever thought about keeping your mind just in paragraph by paragraph? And she said, no, because I really don't know how to read chapter books.
And where did that come from?
Well, this is if she's finding it hard to remember over a chapter, she's having difficulty remembering from paragraph to paragraph. Like, what's she keeping her mind on? And so I must have got her to read, maybe I got her to read the first paragraph to just see, whether it was okay in terms of decoding. And it must have been. So I've said, okay, now, oh, yes, she would have read it. And I said, tell me what it's about. And she couldn't.
So there is your clue.
Yes.
Because you've got.
So she can decode. So this isn't too difficult for her in terms of, but it is difficult in terms of holding what's happening in her mind. So I said, all right, I want you to read that again, and I really want you to keep your mind in the book and tell me at the end of the paragraph what's happening here. She read that paragraph, I think she read it out loud again, turned to me, and she said, this is what's in my mind. And her synthesis of that information, by synthesis I mean saying what was happening there in her own words, was amazing.
Right.
She has great understanding of some complex vocabulary. Well, it wasn't hugely complex, it wasn't but neither was it just simple. There was a metaphor in there, not in that paragraph, but one came up. But what she did was she said to me, you really, by saying...
Put your mind into what you're reading.
Yeah, keep your eyes and mind in the book. She said, you really made me visualise.
And she just came up with that, you didn't?
Yeah, but she said, I've been taught about visualising and how to visualise.
But before she spoke about this, did you say, what helped you or not? Not sure.
Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
No.
But she said, I used visualising, but I've never known how to really use my visualising. She said, I can use it to help me, not with the big picture, I can use it to help me paragraph by paragraph. So that was a whole new thought for her. So because she said she didn't know how chapter books worked, it was this idea of, all right, paragraph by paragraph, it's building pictures for me. Who said that? Where is this happening? She said she became aware of all of these different things all of a sudden. So keeping her eyes and mind in the book. Now, we went paragraph by paragraph, and she would just do that. She would read it, and then she'd just want to turn to me and say, this is what's in my mind. And she said, by keeping my mind in the book, she said, I'm not just visualising and picturing things in my imagination. I'm really keeping my mind and the pictures in exactly what words are being said, have been written. Now that was a big, I'm going to say a big connection for her, a big noticing, a big realisation for her, because she said, I've done lots of, what do you picture here? What do you see? But not really what is right here. Keep my mind in the book. You know how some children will imagine all kinds of things that are happening, visualising things, making connections. Oh, this reminds me of, I think because it mentioned.
But they're not really getting to what the author's intent is, probably.
Yeah, they're not keeping it
With
in the book.
With the author's intent.
Yeah. So she said, because she said she found herself using her imagination all the time to go, so that's making me think of, or making a connection. They mentioned a park, and so then I go to a park that I know. But I'm not going, so what's the park like here?
What's the image of it in
yes. Here? So this, just by saying keep your mind, keep your eyes and your mind in the book, got her. And so that's what we discovered was why she couldn't remember what was happening in the book, was because she was always going off on, what connections am I making? What pictures is this making in my mind?
So we've got her realising how to do this paragraph by paragraph.
Yes.
And then there's another step in this, was it?
Well, so then I said, all right, so how can this help you as a reader? She said, I'm already, so we did that for that page. And we went through all those paragraphs, and she said, right, I can piece all of that together, and I can tell you now on this page, this is what's happened. I can bring all of that together and do a quick little summary of that. So she said, as her strategy goal, she said, this is what I'm going to do. When I'm reading, at the end of every logical place of a page, I am going to jot a summary, a one-sentence summary of that page, of that section. And she said, because I've never known how to summarise. Now I do. Now if I know what I'm reading, then I could actually write a summary of it.
Yeah.
And she said, and if I do that at the end of each page, that will help me to know. Anyway, she knew exactly what it was. Yeah.
So then she was set on her goal on her reading calendar, and she was set.
Yes.
To practice that.
Yeah. Yeah. But once again, it was just that idea of she knew immediately how it helped her and what she would keep doing.
Yeah. And the teacher gained some ideas from that?
Yes. Yeah. I can't think what the teacher said at that point, but anyway. All right, now I'm just going to quickly talk about another Year 5 student, and I want to make a connection here that already the teacher has been looking at the reading calendar and noticing 4 weeks into school that this girl has only been reading graphic novels. And as a Year 5 is now wanting to, being able to work with a wider range of texts. And so this child has selected and has for 2 days been reading a novel, not a graphic novel, but a novel. And she's bringing that to me, and I've asked the teacher to choose somebody that I can confer with that she wants to know some more about. And she said, yes, we've got this girl onto a novel. 2 days in, love to get some more information about how she's managing that and, what strategies she's bringing to that now. So, child sits down, says to me, and I notice on the calendar, I said, so you've got, because we're sitting with the calendar in front of us as well. I notice you're a graphic novel reader, but you're now reading something different. She said, yes, but I want to abandon it. I said, tell me about why you want to abandon it. And she said, because the author just jumps all over the place. I just can't follow it at all. And I said, can you show me in the book how that's happening? What can we read, a little section, and I want you to read that section and then talk me through how the author is jumping all over the place. So she's up to, chapter 5 or whatever in the book, and she's already started reading in this session, so we're not at the beginning of a chapter. She's just reading on from where she is. Now, as she reads, I am entirely aware that she just does not take any pauses anywhere. She doesn't pause for punctuation. She doesn't pause for paragraphs. She just reads it as continuous text.
And might I say, without conferring, how is anyone ever going to pick that up?
Yeah.
Multiple choice won't do it, will it?
No.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Go forth.
So I just observe that bit of reading. I don't get her to read much, because why am I going to get her to read very much when she's reading it in that way and it's not working? But she's attempting this book, and she's right in feeling like she's wanting to abandon it because she hasn't got a way in to reading this book in the way that she is confused about it. And so this whole thing, how do we know this without conferring, and how do we know without asking some questions about this, like, why do you want to abandon it?
Yes, yeah, yep.
So they need the opportunity to express that, and that's what I'm going to say is so powerful from each of these instances, is how much a child will reveal of the challenges that they have, even to a person they've never met before.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives power to the conference in ways that we cannot ever dismiss. If it's so important for a child to let you know the problems that they're having, and we can't solve that, as powerfully in any other way, then that's an incredible opportunity to learn, not something that I can just do now, but gives insight into me going, wonder if any other child thinks this or feels this.
And it's never too late. I mean, she's got to year 5 without being able to take a pause.
Yeah.
But we'll go into that. We'll go into that.
Yes, yeah.
But it's never too late. You can pick these things up in conferring, and you can change things.
And I think the really important thing here is that this is where we are not ever finishing our learning to read journey.
Right. And might I say also that, here we don't have a struggling reader who's identified as someone who's really struggling with reading.
Correct.
But has a major thing that needs to be addressed.
Yes. And
as probably all children have some challenge that they have to.
Well, and is also a really important thing for us to acknowledge. What the teacher has done here, they've noticed something really important. That at year 5, they have had a very strong diet of graphic novels that have helped them become a highly successful reader of graphic novels, but not of other types of text, which doesn't mean they haven't got a lot to bring to other types of text. But it did mean for this child not enough to want to continue with the book.
So what stage are we up with her now?
Right, so she's now read, and I can see that she's not taken a pause, and I ask, explain to me how the author jumps all over the place. And she has read over, in the part that she's read, it was some dialogue, and then it headed into quite a large paragraph. So there was sort of two short, there was a bit of short dialogue, another bit of dialogue, and then this longer paragraph. She said, well, look, it goes from one person talking, and then it looks like someone else is saying something else, and then you don't know who's saying what, and then, it goes to a different place, and then someone else comes into it. And what was clear was, so I said, all right, so how does a graphic novel organise? How does the writer organise all the information that you need? And she said, well, they organise it with the illustration and then, a speech bubble or a thought bubble or just information, in the white space. I said, how does a novel writer organise their information?
And we'll take a break there from part 3 of our podcast. We look forward to you joining us for part 4.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.